Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. The Steelers getting set for the Los Angeles Chargers, coming off a big win last week against the 7-1 Indy Colts. They're now 7-2. Mike Tomlin is set to begin his press conference as we have a Tomlin Tuesday. Let's go to the coach.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick assessment of our last performance. I really have the same reaction that I had after the game. I thought a major catalyst over all the three phases of the game that was significant was our ability to minimize their outstanding running back, Taylor. Their offensive unit certainly had been on fire. They had punted, I think, 16 times in 8 ball games. Their success is well documented, but it all, from our perspective, stemmed from their ability to run the ball, to stay on schedule, to minimize one-dimensional passing circumstances. It allowed them to stay one step ahead of the defensive units, usually. It allowed them to minimize the potential of negativity in doing so. They protected the ball. I think they'd only turned the ball over 4 times on the season. And so a major component of the game for us was altering that, making them absorb some more risk, having them be in more one-dimensional passing circumstances, hopefully forcing them to punt a little bit more. All of those things stem from our ability to minimize the run game, and so just wanted to restate that. I thought largely we played complementary football as well. Once we started taking the ball away, the offense started scoring. I think we put on 2 quick touchdowns in the first half off of turnovers. It didn't always start that way. I thought that our inability to score when we got that turnover in the special teams game was a significant component, early component of the game, and from a negative perspective. And so complementary football is big. Stopping the run is big. The takeaway game obviously is always big. These are core values, man, that we hold and certainly work toward. And we saw the fruit of that labor in stadium in terms of how the game unfolded. From a health standpoint, we had a number of things going on with people. Don't have a lot of significant updates. I'm certain that I will get more clarity as we push forward through the week. Scotty Miller is out with his finger. We'll see how he's able to function at some point this week with that. Cole Holcomb is still out with his illness. We'll keep an eye on him and see what his level of participation is. Isaac Siamalo is still nursing a pec like he was managing at the early portions of last week, and he was able to function for us. Pep's got a soft tissue injury. Chuck Clark is sick. He should be returning to us. And then we have some other bumps and bruises associated with play that may limit some people at the beginning of the week, but not prevent them from practicing and participating as we push forward through the week. As we always do, one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. We'll take it as an opportunity to grow and develop some others and ready ourselves in that way. Certainly excited about a complete week's work with Kyle Duggar. Was really impressed by his work in stadium. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that again. Really impressed by his work in stadium. Excited about having a complete week of work with him at the safety position, not only in terms of knowing what to do. Certainly he displayed an ability to learn quickly and play and detail that component of it, but the communication component of it, the work within groups. I thought Jalen Ramsey did an awesome job with him, particularly as we got into the weekend last week, making sure that they were coordinated as safeties. But all that work didn't mean anything. We still had to get in the stadium and make it happen. It certainly was a challenge. It lacked a little bit of fluidity there early on, but I thought as those two worked together, their experience in the National Football League, even though they're somewhat new to us, and whether it's Jalen new to the safety position, I thought their global overall experience and talent showed up as the game wore on. So excited about an additional week's work with that collective. Jalen will continue to work exclusively at safety. We value his play, his positional flexibility. It's an asset to us. It gives a lot of people things to work on, but certainly under the circumstances that we're under right now, we deem that appropriate as we did last week in terms of nailing him down there. And so it'll provide opportunities for guys like Brandon Echols to step up, which he did, and play more snaps as a nickel, et cetera. And even guys like James Pierre had an opportunity to get some snaps outside. We've got more depth at corner than we do at safety. And so we're just simply pivoting and doing what's required to keep the train rolling. Now I'll start on the Los Angeles Chargers. I'll start first on their defensive side. Got a lot of respect for Jesse Minter, man, and his strategic approach to the game on that side. He does an awesome job of minimizing big plays. He does an awesome job of moving Derwin James around. Derwin is just, he's the straw that stirs the drink for them. He plays safety and base. He's capable of playing rundown nickel. He's also capable of playing linebacker in passing circumstances. Minter does an awesome job of showing all of his talents in those ways. He's a good blitzer. He's a good tackler. His disguises are great. I think they do a nice job with veterans in the secondary like Jefferson and Dante Jackson and others who also have to be versatile as he moves around. And I think oftentimes we don't talk enough about that. If one person is moving around, it generally creates challenges for others, and they seem to manage all of that really, really well. At the linebacker spot, they got a nice blend of older and younger. Perryman mixed up with Henley, man, is a nice tandem. Perryman's got really good instincts and experience. He's a good rundown tackler. Henley is a challenge. He's a good athlete. He's a sideline tackler, former safety. I think you see that in his game in terms of his ability to cover grass and do some of the things that could be challenging to other linebackers. He's also a really good blitzer. That's a component of his game that looks elevated in 2025 relative to 2024. But it's a reasonable expectation to see a young, talented player evolve and evolve in certain areas of his game. And certainly his blitz game is much more impactful watching this year's tape than when we were getting ready to play him a year ago. Their edge group is the group. They've got talent and depth in that group. They play as many as 4 and 5 guys along the edge. It's really impressive considering that, Bosa is no longer a member of that group yet and is still their deepest and most talented position probably on either side of the ball. We got a lot of people to get ready for there. Khalil Mack, certainly, former Defensive Player of the Year, is one worth mentioning. And then Owe is an acquisition from the Ravens who we have some familiar with, certainly. And he's been a big asset to him since his acquisition. I think he's had 4 sacks or so in the last 4 games. On the offensive side, man, it certainly starts with Herbert for us. I feel like we caught a flyer a year ago. He was limited from a mobility perspective when we played him. I thought it impacted how the game unfolded. It allowed us to do some things schematically that you're somewhat hesitant to do if he has full mobility. I think it nailed him down in the pocket some and probably limited some of the things that they choose to do schematically, like play action pass and changes of the launch point, which is certainly a component of Greg Roman's attack. It was minimized some last year. And so as I watch tape this year, I'm cognizant of that. Herbert is extremely talented. He can kill you with his arms. He certainly can kill you with his legs. He can kill you with both by play extension. He has a complete arsenal of people to throw to. Can't say enough about their receiver core. The reacquisition of Keenan Allen is kind of a linchpin. Man, he's a steady Eddie. He's been around Herbert in the past. You can tell he's certainly a security blanket. You throw him in with the emergence of Johnson and McConkey, man, they're a dangerous group. And in recent weeks, I'd probably be wrong if I didn't mention the emergence of Gatson, the rookie tight end from Syracuse, who's really put together some big-time games. His talent is showing. He's a guy that's capable of some run after. He's one of those unique body types. He's almost an oversized receiver, if you will. And so we certainly have our hands full in these one-dimensional passing moments, working to minimize all those eligibles while at the same time respecting the mobility component of Herbert. I've talked about all those things, and I certainly had mentioned the run game, and I better. When you're playing a Greg Roman offense, man, you better be prepared to stand up against the run. They've had some attrition in the backfield, but it hadn't slowed down their growth and progress in that area. They drafted the young runner from North Carolina in round 1. Certainly they acquired Najee in free agency. Both of those guys are not available to them, but there's still been an uptick in their run game, particularly in recent weeks as Vidal has found his rhythm. I think he's got 200-yard games in the last 3 weeks. Patterson last week in particular is another young guy. I think he had about 50 yards rushing on 8 or 9 carries. And so, there's no rest for the weary. We got a big game versus a really good team in their venue, one that's talented offensively and one that's talented defensively and in special teams. And so with that understanding, man, we're certainly preparing with an edge this week. And we got some things to sort through in terms of player availability. I expect that to clear up as we push through the week and us to be able to narrow our focus and position ourselves to be our best. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, did you go into the game against the Colts thinking that Duggar would play all but one snap, or did you just want to see how it was going to evolve?
I was hopeful that he could play a lot, but certainly we had direct eyes on him in case it wasn't unfolding in the ways that we would like. We're just getting to know him. We certainly respect the fact that he's a veteran player, and he certainly displayed signs that he was capable in our practice sessions leading up to Sunday. But stadiums are somewhat different, and so we had a plan, but we were certainly light on our feet if that wasn't moving in the right direction.
What did you see while he was playing that was either satisfying or comforting to you?
I didn't think there was any lack of fluidity in his movement, whether it was pre-snap adjustments or things that happened at the snap. And I think oftentimes that's an indicator of understanding. I certainly didn't expect him to be a hub of communication. Communication was probably going to be one-sided. But just in general, in terms of putting eyes on him, his fluidity of movement, adjusting the pre-snap shifts and motions, and the hair trigger that you saw at or just instantly after the snap gave me an indication that he was comfortable, he knew what he was looking at, and that he was going to be okay.
You talked about Jalen's versatility. What traits make him a good safety?
It's just his relationship with the game. I think some of the things that you talk about when you first talk about the safety position are intangible qualities, are not necessarily things that you measure. He's got really good instincts. He's got really good passion for the game. He studies the game, and I think those are some things that really enable him to play back there, and that's such a major component of that position. His talents are obvious, his tackling, his range, his physicality. But the more subtle things, the intangible things, I think are the things that are exciting for us because as he gains more experience back there, it's reasonable to expect some of those talents to show up more frequently.
A number of the defensive players talked about simplifying the defense last week going into the Colts game. How much of that was a byproduct of having new faces like Kyle Duggar, Jalen playing a new position, and how much of it was because you weren't getting the results you desired in the first part of the season?
I think it's both. I think it always is. I think all the decisions that you make in terms of menu and menu size are usually about yourself first and what you're going through, and then what's required to strategically match up against opponents.
Do you anticipate keeping it simple again this week?
New week, new issues. We'll see.
To that same vein, there definitely would seem to be a schematic change in terms of like too high versus not blitzing as much. Was that primarily of how you wanted to attack the Colts, or is that also a reaction to what you've been seeing in recent weeks?
Week in and week out, we make decisions based on the variables of that week, and so certainly the things that we did last week were relative to the Colts and our circumstance.
Not do anything to try to ease Duggar's transition into playing so much schematically for your defense?
It's only so much you can do. He's deserving of a lot of credit, and that's why I mentioned him directly after the game. There's only so much you can do. He absorbed a lot of defense in a short period of time and displayed knowledge and understanding.
Would you like to, Mike, if possible, to add some help or depth at safety to allow Jalen to be more position flexible? Or are you happy with him being in the back third?
It really depends on player availability. It's certainly an asset of his. It's something that he's open to doing. It's something that he's capable of. But as I mentioned when I was talking about Derwin James, those things don't happen in a vacuum. They involve others and others' movement as well. And so we'll make those decisions based on what's available to us.
Mike, along those lines, you said last week you guys would be buyers at the trade deadline. You already bought one in Kyle Duggar. Do you anticipate shopping around a little bit more before 4 o'clock?
We'll see what happens. I like shopping.
And Mike, along those lines, last year, around this time, you referred to the trade deadline as an arms race. How have you seen in recent years teams become more aggressive when it comes to in-season trades?
I don't know that I look at it in terms of trends from that perspective. I just know that, if you're trending in the right direction, if you got the desire to be in this thing as the road gets narrow, usually you're open to adding talent that can assist you, whether it's attrition based or whether it's just areas where you fall short. And that's something that I think some of the competitive teams are interested in and year out. It's just a natural component of this thing.
The team announced that you got Valdez-Scantling signed. You doing any more shopping at wide receiver, or has he addressed what you needed to address there?
You said 4 o'clock? 4 o'clock. So we got a few more hours. We'll see what happens.
What about him as a player? How does he help you? How might he be woven in?
He's just a practice squatter right now, and so we'll get him in the fold and get him working and check his overall level of conditioning, how he learns, and some of those things. It is not the Duggar discussion. He's just a practice squad guy.
How much did Aaron kind of advocate for bringing him in just with his familiarity?
He did not.
Mike, just to clarify, did you say Scotty and Cole are out this week or out to begin the week?
No, we'll see if they're able to participate, and then the quality of that participation will be our guide in terms of whether or not we include them.
When was the last time you had like an illness run through the locker room that kept these guys off for this period of time?
COVID, is the only thing that kind of comes to mind. But it's the National Football League, man. That's why you better have a hardcore plan and be light on your feet. I'm certainly thankful that we acquired Kyle Duggar, man, and he's a quick study.
Mike, at the wide receiver position, how have you seen guys behind DK Metcalf like Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson continue to grow and develop, and how much more would you like to see them continue that process?
I think it's been a steady improvement in terms of their quality of play, particularly Roman of late, other than that boneheaded lack of ball security late in the football game. Generally, there's been an uptick in the quality of his play. But again, we don't look at our eligibles as wide receivers, man. We feel really good about our tight end group as eligibles as well. And you can't talk about the passing game without talking about the contributions that we get from that group. We've been very open about that as well. When we acquired Jonnu at the very beginning of the journey, we talked about, that we have eligibles. Regardless, REC, receivers. And I still think we feel the same way. We certainly need growth and development from individuals within our collective, like the two that you mentioned, but we're comfortable with how we're distributing the ball and our utilization of people and our division of labor to this point.
Going off of that, kind of on the defensive side, Peyton Wilson, obviously a big showing on Sunday. Just how have you seen him grow and develop this season?
He's one of those second-year guys that gained a lot of in helmet experience last year. And so when you get that, it's reasonable to expect those guys to move forward and take off. Certain guys that don't get a lot of in-helmet experience, we have that same expectation. Roman, Troy Fatanu, for example. And so Peyton logged a bunch of snaps last year. He's playing really good ball, but we expect him to. He expects himself to. He's got a really good relationship with the game. He's professional. He studies. We've asked him to stand in for Miles Killebrew as a special teams captain. And so, man, there's a lot of things trending in the right direction from a career standpoint for him, certainly.
Mike, you guys consistently took away the Colts' first read to make David Jones hold onto the ball. What did you see in the preparation that led to that being a more consistent factor for your defense compared to the other previous 2 games?
His first option is to turn and hand that ball to Jonathan Taylor. And so that was the first order of business, and I think it all kind of went on from there, as I mentioned.
When you guys as a staff, you and the rest of your defensive coaches evaluate the creation of turnovers, are you looking at it from the standpoint of like a turnover is a turnover, like a win is a win, or do you look at it from the standpoint, like Cleveland, for instance, you're in a position to make a lot. They just didn't get them. The 2 games that you had against the division leaders in the AFC, you had 11. So do you kind of look at yourselves as we had a better turnover game strictly by the total, or is it more about the position you put your guys into?
We're ball searchers. And so, forget how many we get. We have to consistently display intent where appropriate. As we talked some last week, sometimes it's not appropriate when you're the first hitter, for example. But we routinely work on when it's appropriate. We have to be ball aware first. We got to be ball searcher second. And when you do those things, you generally get the results that you desire.
Mike Beanie Bishop was one of those ball searchers a year ago. You guys make the decision to move on from him with the practice squad. Just how did you kind of come to that?
You know, I'm not getting into practice squad decisions. That's just too far down the totem pole. I'm more interested in what we need to do this week and the guys that are on the 53 we're preparing to play.
Like, what does this defense have to do to build off of the momentum that you guys set last week against Indianapolis?
Simply come back to work. You know, as I mentioned post-game, man, it's a fine line in this business between success and failure in this week in and week out. The teams that are really good, the units that are really good, the individuals that are really good have a certain level of consistency to their performance. And so that certainly is a challenge for that unit that you asked about.
Mike, what have you seen out of Patrick Queen from the standpoint of his ability to communicate the defense, what Terrell wants, getting the checks out, and how he's operated as you guys' kind of quarterback with you?
PQ's been awesome in year two as our defensive quarterback. He's really owned the responsibility of being a hub of communication. It's something that's somewhat new to him, although playing is not. Being that defensive quarterback is, and I like the trajectory of it in year two.
Been very banged up at running back and on the offensive line, but they still average 4.8 yards a carry. Is that Greg Roman, or is there something else they have going on that makes them so good at running the football regardless of the personnel?
I think just there's a commitment from Roman and company. You know, we've competed against him a lot over the years. I think that's a signature of his football. I think it's going to be evident regardless of who plays running back and who plays in the offensive line. All you got to do is think about his time in Baltimore. There was always some emerging runner when faced with adversity, Gus Edwards and others that were running through people. And so I think the same remains.
Mike, Aaron told us after the game that Jalen talked to the team Saturday. What kind of impact do you think that had on the group, and what do you think about a guy that's been around 7 games willing to go up in front of the group?
You know, I asked him to, but he's not the only one. But generally, I'll keep those conversations between us. He's got a lot of experience, NFL experience, world championship experience, and I'm thankful that he was willing to share that with his teammates.
Talked a lot of training camp about you bringing a bunch of veterans together and trying to mold them together as a team. That 2-game losing streak was the first time that togetherness was really tested. How do you feel like they came through that ordeal?
I don't think that was the first time it was tested. It gets tested every day. It gets tested continually. I just think that's the nature of this journey that is a season. You know, I'm not overly concerned about that component of it. We've done our due diligence in terms of the men as individuals. Most of the people that we acquired, we coveted them when they came out in the draft. They've passed our smell test. They're good football men. And usually adversity brings the best out of good football men as opposed to the worst.
Mike, what do you guys have to do to be cleaner in the run game? Where you guys got it done short distance at the goal line. Jalen Warren was held under 2 yards per carry.
You know, sometimes you got to tip your cap to your opponent, and I think that's the first place you start. I thought, excuse me, I thought that Indy did an awesome job. I thought particularly that veteran front tandem of Buckner and Stewart are a problem. We knew that going in. We talked about that in here a week ago. They confirmed that. It minimized our start, to be quite honest with you. Thankfully, we were able to catch fire and move on from there. But I'd probably just like to compliment those guys. As I mentioned, when you got veteran guys that have been together like those two, coupled with a guy like Franklin, who's grown up in that system, and the safety tandem as well. Nick Cross, in his 4th year, drafted Kenny Moore, longtime Colt at the nickel spot. When you got people down the middle of that defense like that with that level of not only individual experience but collective experience, there are going to be some challenges.
Anyone else? All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin getting set for a trip across the country to the Chargers. Bob Pompiani back with Missy Matthews. And interesting because this is a game that features two really high-powered teams in different ways right now. The Steeler defense coming off that performance, and the Chargers, they have a lot of weapons at offense, although they are going to miss their two starting tackles. So that is an interesting part of this matchup.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a different team for both sides than when they met last year, here in Pittsburgh. But Justin Herbert is still there. He is healthy this time. Last year he was not. And he's a guy, he has a lot of guys he can throw to. He also was their leading rusher last week against Tennessee. So quarterback mobility is something to watch for as well.
Yeah, he has over 300 yards rushing. Most people don't think that. You know, they lost Omarion Hampton. Najee Harris is out. But they keep plugging in guys, and they come up with big numbers. And Vidal, who's now the guy, a 6th-round pick, has a couple of two 100-yard rushing games. And again, they plug and play, and they're having a good opportunity of that. I just wonder, as we go deeper into this, about the strategy that Mike Tomlin and the defense will employ trying to attack, backup tackles. And conversely, Harbaugh has to worry about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg Roman will, really take that on for sure. And I think, for TJ Watt and those guys coming off the performance they just had, a few days ago here at Acrisure Stadium against the Colts, they're probably thinking, let's keep that momentum going. But easier said than done, I think, though, losing both starting tackles, or schematically can take advantage of, and we can see, more sacks, more turnovers, the things that we were missing for about 3 weeks.
And we saw a lot of them last week, no doubt. The biggest amount of turnovers forced since 2010, 6 of them, and then 5 sacks on top of that made life miserable for Daniel Jones. We'll see what happens this coming Sunday. When we come back, we'll revisit what some of Mike Tomlin says and also talk about specifically the Chargers, what they are doing, what the Steelers have to do to slow them down on the road on a Sunday night. We'll do that when we continue right here on the Mike Tomlin Press Conference every Tuesday, right here on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
Well, we started off pretty slow. I mean, it was pretty ugly on offense for a decent part of the day. Had a lot of chances. But our defense played incredible, after getting blasted for the last week. Really proud of them. Thought the energy was great. Thought there was a good message last night by Jalen, and I think the guys responded well.
Following up on that, Aaron, after the muff punt, I think you scored on every one of the next 4 that you got, the turnovers. What did you like, first of all, about your execution and the play calling as well that came in those situations?
Oh, I love the play calling. I thought the execution was pretty bad. We got to look in the mirror and play better on offense because that's not good enough. Any phase, run game, catching the football, defense played incredible, and we got to put game like that. We got to put 35, 42 on the board and close the game out. So, good tape for coaching staff when you win a game and you got a lot to work on.
Aaron, specifically with TJ, when he makes that play, what kind of wave did that give?
I think that was a turning point in the game for sure. 7-0, they were driving. We ended up turning that into 7, I believe. So that was good. It wasn't a pretty drive. We had a 4th and 1 conversion, but that changed the game 100%. From that point forward, I thought the pass rush was outstanding. I thought we covered well on the back end. Got to give Kyle a lot of credit for coming in here and playing the way he did. But I felt like Alex and TJ and Nick were super active, and their inside guys were good, and seemed like BQ had a good game, and Peyton had a big pick. So everybody on defense played great.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about to them.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
Defense is swarming.
It is picked up. What a catch. Wow. Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers.
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
I didn't think there was any lack of fluidity in his movement, whether it was pre-snap adjustments or things that happened at the snap. And I think oftentimes that's an indicator of understanding. I certainly didn't expect him to be a hub of communication. Communication was probably going to be one-sided. But just in general, in terms of putting eyes on him, his fluidity of movement, adjusting the pre-snap shifts and motions, and the hair trigger that you saw at or just instantly after the snap gave me an indication that he was comfortable, he knew what he was looking at, and that he was going to be okay.
The trade deadline in the NFL is today at 4 p.m., but the Steelers already took care of one thing they needed last week when they brought in Kyle Duggar. You heard Mike Tomlin talk about it. He often talks about jumping on a moving train, but he did. I mean, that train was going fast. He only had a couple of days to get this in, and to see that he took place on the field in 77 of 78 snaps says a lot about just his experience, but on a very, very short week, to get it done the way he did was impressive.
Yeah, I think Kyle said after the game it was really Friday when he realized he was probably going to be playing a lot, probably due to some of the injuries like Chuck Clark, who did not play due to a sickness. But, you know, Coach Tomlin doesn't talk often about what happens inside the locker room in different conversations, team meetings, but he did let the media know that Kyle Duggar very well deservingly got a game ball after that performance of jumping on the moving train, like you said. And you could just tell during the game conversations off the field between him and Jalen Ramsey, even TJ Watt talking to him a lot, that they were very impressed by what he was able to do and how much he was helping them.
And speaking of Ramsey, I mean, he hadn't played safety for an entire game. I don't know when the last time. It was probably a long time ago, but he was there. He's been willing to adjust. He made a big hit in that game, and he's just one of those guys that you can put him in a lot of different places. And how valuable is that given all the injuries they sustained in that secondary?
I think, too, you know, coming off of the performance that Tucker Kraft had against the Steelers defense, clearly, you know, injuries played into it, but it felt like it was something that was starting to become a trend. And I think having him back there, you know, going into that game, you also knew with Tyler Warren that could be a potential to kind of explode. You've seen what he's been able to do as a rookie so far in the National Football League. But I think, you know, as Coach said, Jalen Ramsey is going to stay exclusively at safety. It seems like work there moving forward, and I don't think that's a bad idea until they can maybe figure things out. And also, Kyle Duggar will finally have a full week of practice, of preparation, and knowing what team he's playing for and who he's playing. So that will be good to see as well as they head to LA.
And they really did an excellent job after that first possession of just limiting what the Colts typically do, and that's run the football, and then from that, throw the ball down the field to so many eligibles they have. It starts with Jonathan Taylor. They did a good job, although I thought Indy kind of ignored him on that first drive. He only ran the ball 2 out of 13 plays, I think. But after that, he wasn't going to have success. They clogged it up, and they allowed their edge rushers to get after it. And that's pretty much the formula you want from the Steelers, shutting a run game down and then allow those guys to go and attack the quarterback.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Cam Hayward challenged the defense heading into the game. Aaron Rodgers let everybody know about Jalen Ramsey speaking during the team meeting, challenging the entire team as well. And I think, you know, having the Super Bowl 40 crew on hand to celebrate the 20th anniversary of that probably didn't hurt either. But I think in terms of stopping Taylor, you also did give, of course, Cam Hayward batted 2 passes in 1 drive, which was just ridiculous. And, you know, for Derek Harmon, he recovered a fumble. Keanu Benton, those young guys in the middle there, they really stepped up, as you said, to stop the run, letting the guys like Alex Highsmith and whatnot get around. But it was definitely a defensive performance I don't think many saw coming. I don't think many people even picked the Steelers to have a chance to win the game, let alone to make, you know, the NFL's #1 offense look like it is the complete opposite of what you had seen for 8 weeks.
Yes, and you saw Alex Highsmith doing his thing there. That was his best performance of the year. He's been bothered by injury, but when those two together are on the field, and I thought interesting also, Missy, that Indianapolis chose not to give the tackles any help here. They were pretty much on an island, each of them, against Watt and Highsmith. And once the run game was stopped, that was a matchup the Steelers were going to exploit, and boy, did they.
Yeah, and some of their, you know, their wide receivers had over 100 yards, but I think when you look at, you know, playing opportunistic and getting those splash plays, you can kind of let things like that happen. The bend don't break. But they really did make Daniel Jones not look like the Colts version that we had seen prior to that game, but more like what he looked like last year with the Giants before they traded him.
The other thing the Steelers did, and they had missed a lot of tackles the previous week, they did not miss many tackles this week. Shut down yards after catch. That's what Indy has done very well. When Pittman gets it, Pierce, any of those guys, they normally turn shorter plays into longer plays, and the Steelers didn't allow too many of those.
I think also penalties. DK kind of talked after the game about not biting and going after different guys at different times, and sometimes that hurt the Colts, which, set up a field goal drive for Boz on that one where DK kind of just walked away. So it was good to see that was another thing that they cleaned up as well.
Yeah, that's a veteran knowing exactly if they're going to look for retaliation. You're not going to get it from me. We're going to take a break here, come back with more of Mike Tomlin's press conference, what he had to say in case you missed it. All next. Stick around.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked up. What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
Yeah, first and foremost, I'll go to God for the win. I think we just came out and we did what we know we can do this week. We came out and we stopped the run. That's where it starts. And then our culture came alive. We had 5 turnovers, I think, 6. So I think when we do that, man, we're an amazing defense. And so we just got to put more performances like that together. And I'm confident we're going to continue to stack this and play like this every week from here on out. So we just got to continue to play like that.
Really well was looked like take Jones's eyes away and bat the ball a few times. You're often very good at that, but it sort of waned these last couple of weeks when you were getting beat with a quick passing game. Was that a point of emphasis this week?
Yeah, absolutely. We knew that if we stopped their run when they were in second long, they were going to try to get the back on schedule, the rhythm passing, quick game. So I think we did a good job of getting our hands up. One of them led to a pick. So I think we just did a good job of just recognizing when they were in those quick game formations and then executing, getting tip balls, relating to guys in those zones. So I think we executed that plan.
How much does it fire you guys up when you're getting so many contributions, so many splash plays from guys across the board defensively? How much do you guys feed off that?
It's awesome. We know that whenever we are creating turnovers, whenever our culture comes alive, everybody feeds off that. And I think these last couple of weeks, we hadn't got any turnovers, and we weren't really feeding off of each other. But we know that to be a great defense, you got to be a defense that plays with energy, plays with passion, and so we did that today.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
He's one of those second-year guys that gained a lot of in helmet experience last year. And so when you get that, it's reasonable to expect those guys to move forward and take off. Certain guys that don't get a lot of in-helmet experience, we have that same expectation. Roman, Troy Fatanu, for example. And so Peyton logged a bunch of snaps last year. He's playing really good ball, but we expect him to. He expects himself to. He's got a really good relationship with the game. He's professional. He studies. We've asked him to stand in for Miles Killebrew as a special teams captain. And so, man, there's a lot of things trending in the right direction from a career standpoint for him, certainly.
That's Mike Tomlin talking about Peyton Wilson. What a game he had last week. He's been up and down this season, I think, honestly, but this game he put it all together. 14 tackles and, of course, an interception, and then he batted one to Jack Sawyer. All of that in one day. That's a lot of work.
He was definitely hard at work on Sunday against the Colts, which was great to see. And I think he did come in with a certain level of confidence after his rookie season, as he, reported to training camp even during the offseason. And you saw that kind of carry over to the regular season. As you said, some ups and downs. But I think they also were kind of figuring out the inside linebacker situation also, which is so many new pieces on defense. I thought things settled down for him when they were bringing Cole Holcomb in a little bit. Obviously, he was not available for this game. But Peyton Wilson was everywhere and anywhere on that field. And, it was TJ Watt who really got the party started, I feel like, with the strip sack. And, you not only could you just tell by the team, but the entire atmosphere changed. And it just felt like they were going to come in bunches, and they certainly did. And I think for Peyton, he also had an opportunity during the preseason for some of the games, to be the green dot, because Patrick Queen didn't play a lot. So they are definitely trying to fast track some of his ability that, they saw from him before they drafted him into the National Football League. And it has certainly helped the Steelers defense.
Yeah, a lot of people had worried about his injuries coming out of college. The Steelers did not. They knew that if he was healthy, he could be this version of himself. Hopefully that'll continue. And the fact that Mike Tomlin says he's now contributing special teams, I mean, he'll do whatever it takes. He's one of those kinds of players. When you talk to him, you know him pretty well. That's what he does. It's all about his team.
Yeah, and I think, he was deeply honored the fact that he gets to be special teams captain since Miles Killebrew is out for the year. And it was Killebrew who actually suggested to Danny Smith that Peyton take over so that there's somebody to represent special teams for the coin toss and whatnot, and to just, do the extra stuff in Saturday meetings and whatnot. But as a young guy, that's a pretty big honor. And I think he is certainly somebody who works hard. And as Coach was saying in that soundbite, the love of the game. So his attention to detail is very thorough.
Yeah, and he makes Danny Smith maybe not chew as hard on that bubble gum he has in his mouth throughout the course of the game. He's more relaxed now knowing that Peyton Wilson has taken that role, and he's done well with it. The other thing about that TJ Watt strip sack, it was interesting in the game because they had scored on a 13-play, 79-yard drive, and then they stopped the Steelers after that botched punt by Downs. They were in position to score, and they couldn't. Indy starts to drive again, and it's, turnovers are turnovers, but turnovers at key times. I thought that timing was huge for them because it just thwarted them and made the Steelers go the other way.
And I think, too, I know they scored on that really long drive, but they had to go for it on fourth down twice. The Steelers defense was making them earn it, which gave me some hope in terms of what we might see in, they turned it on quickly after that in terms of making their life, not as glamorous as it had been in recent weeks for them. Only team still to score at least 20 points in every single game. I was really hoping they wouldn't get to 20 on Sunday just to kind of break that streak for them. But, putting up 30 for the Colts coming in was not out of the ordinary, and they definitely had to, claw to get as many points as they could, and just playing from behind is something new for them.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the things we talked about going into this game. They've been in front of every game, it seems. They've also played in their cozy confines of their dome.
That's right.
And so put them to the test, see what happens when they fall behind. And I think the Steelers got to that, and when that happened, they played right into the Steelers' hands. Another guy's playing well is Derek Harmon. You don't necessarily notice him on a day like today or this game because there were so many turnovers. He did recover a fumble, and it's good to see first-year players like him and Jack Sawyer come in, and they're getting more and more opportunities to do it, and it just increases the depth, which, as we know in a long NFL season, you're going to need it no matter who you are.
Yeah, Derek Harmon, not only is he a first-round pick, but they penciled him as a starter. It wasn't like, we're going to wait and see, how does he do in the early portions of, the team-building operation. But I think, too, stopping Jonathan Taylor, he played a very, very large part in that as well. He's kind of like a Cam Hayward, a mini Cam Hayward. You just see the different things that, Cam has done throughout his career, and Derek Harmon has some of those traits, and who better to learn about it than from Cam himself?
And I think also Keanu Benton's had a role in this too. I don't know, he's a young player. He can identify with Derek Harmon, and I think Mike Tomlin was happy that he put him on a line with those two guys, with Cam and also Keanu Benton, and I think that it's sort of helped him along the way as a first-year player. So there's a lot of good stuff going on with the Steelers defense, and it's interesting because I think Aaron Rodgers termed this as a roller coaster ride, and it is. Any NFL team has it. You're going to have your ups and downs, but the Steelers now have taken on three teams that are 7-2, and they've beaten two of them. So it bodes well for them moving forward. But You're only as good as your last performance, and
That's
they have
right.
another one coming up this Sunday night. We'll talk about that assignment of the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 6-3. They're minus some key people, but they keep on churning along. We'll break down that matchup when we come back right here on Steeler Digital Platforms and KDK+.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
Obviously, it's a game here or there, but I feel like we put a lot of things together. Still a lot of room to improve, which is honestly the scary thing, but we just have to keep putting that product on the field. Like Cam said last week, we can't ride this wave that we've been doing. We just have to be consistent, and we have to execute, and that's what we did today. Still room to improve, though.
Peyton, you guys haven't had a turnover in 3 games, and today you have 6. You know, how does that happen?
I think a lot of it's just the energy that was in here today. I feel like we always put an emphasis on it, but it was in our demeanor today from the time we left this locker room and that's a part of the Steelers. That's how you become a Steeler, you know, turnovers, big hits, big plays like that, and that's what everyone in this locker room wanted to get back to, so we were just excited that we can. We just have to keep doing it every week.
TJ felt like you guys were obviously more aggressive, and that was one of the keys here today. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we really honed in this week, kept it a little simple, and guys were just flying around and being aggressive, and it was fun to watch. It was fun to be a part of.
You mentioned the different energy today. Is that something you felt all week long that was different?
Yeah, and it sucks because you don't want it to be like that. You know, you want that every single week, and that's what we have to continue to do. It can't be, oh, we got our butts kicked 2 weeks in a row, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and then we're like, oh, now we come to play. You know, we have to do this every single week, and like I said, there's still so much to improve on that, I mean, we're going to get back in the lab, and we're going to continue to get better and continue to play.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked up! What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
Herbert is extremely talented. He can kill you with his arms. He certainly can kill you with his legs. He can kill you with both by play extension. He has a complete arsenal of people to throw to. Can't say enough about their receiver core. The reacquisition of Keenan Allen is kind of a linchpin. Man, he's a steady Eddie. He's been around Herbert in the past. You can tell he's certainly a security blanket. You throw him in with the emergence of Johnson and McConkey, man, they're a dangerous group.
Yes, Mike Tomlin talking about Justin Herbert and their offense because they do still put up numbers even with the injuries, and it's difficult to move on with 2 tackles out, but they're going to have to do that. We'll see what that does to their strategy and how they employ their personnel. But it is an advantage for the Steelers, you would think, as they play that game, knowing that if they do that, they're going to have to compensate some of their pass game because you're going to have guys step in. So I think that's something they can certainly use to their advantage. But talk about Herbert, because he does, I don't think people realize. We talk about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes when he scrambles, some of these other guys, but he's very good at doing that when need be.
Yeah, obviously a little different than Daniel Jones, but this is a guy, they did play last year, as we said earlier. He was hurt, so he didn't even make it throughout the entire game, but in terms of using his legs, it is 100% something that they will have to have somebody, whether you have a spy, whatever, however they want to draw this up, to know what he's doing at all times, just in terms of being able to get out of the pocket. You know, some of the crazy throws we see, even from Aaron Rodgers, able to break out, throw it across his body. Justin Herbert is capable of that kind of stuff. So definitely something the Steelers defense will have to pay attention to. I don't think their numbers, you know, it wasn't number one in every category like the Colts, but they are still an offense with all of the weapons that they have, and even the injuries that they've had to running backs, not just those 2 tackles, is crazy in terms of what they've been able to do. So another tall task for the Steelers defense. You also have to go to LA, but definitely going to be a good matchup and a good Sunday Night Football matchup.
It will be. Another guy Mike Tomlin pointed out was Arondé Gadsden, their tight end. He's been involved in this, couple of touchdowns, but they spread it around, Missy. You got Ladd McConkey with 3 touchdowns, Keenan Allen, who Mike called him the linchpin, 4 touchdowns, and then Quentin Johnson has 6. So even though they've had some, you know, roster changes from here and there, the one constant so far has been Justin Herbert and his ability to spread it around. At one point, they had 11 different receivers in one of their games, so he knows how to do that and look for open guys. And now you're seeing his rushing ability, and again, he doesn't do it often, but when he does, he's very capable.
For a quarterback, very fast.
Yeah. Also, that run game, you mentioned no Omarion Hampton, no Najee Harris, but they do have this 6th-round pick, Kamandi Vidal, who has an average of 4.7 yards per carry. Now, you don't expect, you know, 6th-round picks to come in out of necessity and have those kind of numbers, but they're not going away from the run game.
No, absolutely not. I don't think they would. Of course, you know, they were building this offensive line to protect Justin Herbert. Those injuries at the tackle position on both sides, very unfortunate, but I still think as a unit, they are doing exactly what Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator wants them to be doing. So still a tall task, even with injuries. This isn't, you know, you can't just say, okay, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig are going to go crazy. They're going to come up with a plan to try to eliminate them and not let them get to Justin Herbert.
Yes, indeed. And when, you know, he was in Baltimore, they had the same situation with Stanley being injured, and they had to compensate for that over there. So there's a lot of stuff going on with Greg Roman. When we come back, we're going to talk about the trade deadline. It's 4 o'clock today. There's already been an amazing amount of moves, including one blockbuster. We'll tell you about that when we come back right here on Steelers Digital Platforms and KDKA+.
Fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked up. What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
Kyle, is your head spinning after this week of coming here and playing as quickly as you did, playing a full game?
Nah, we got to win, and that's all that matters. That's all I'm thinking about. So, yeah.
At what point in the week did you know that you were going to be out there as much as you were?
I think maybe Friday. It was pretty early on. So, yeah, standard.
How do you kind of compartmentalize maybe to be able to go out there and play as much as you did on just really 2 practices?
I think it had everything to do with my coaches, the coaches in the team, and my teammates. You know, kind of making things, kind of the terminology as far as like what I used to play, and just kind of matching it up and marrying it up for me, and just kind of simplifying it in meetings, and then communicating on the field in practice. Every rep counted, you know, and just putting in a ton of work and talking to them every play and things like that made it simple for me.
I saw Jalen talking to you out there on the field, and then when you went to the sideline, Juan would come over and help you. How did those 2 guys kind of really help you pick up this defense quickly and play?
It was everything. Like I said earlier, my teammates, and that's kind of what I was talking about. Every play, talking, practice was the same way. Talking, communicating, explaining things, play to play. Before the snap, we get the call. We're going over, you know, what we got to do and things like that. And communication is, you know, the key to great defense and great team. So
now that you've played a game with these guys, what's your thoughts on this defense and your new team?
It's a special defense. I'm ecstatic to be a part of it. Seriously. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
When asked about the deadline today at 4 p.m., Mike Tomlin says, I like shopping. We'll find out what they do. A lot of teams have been shopping so far, Missy. Jacoby Myers, a wide receiver a lot of people wanted to see end up here in Pittsburgh, goes to Jacksonville, 4th and 6. And Rashid Shaheed, another one, ends up going to Seattle. They're going to be a tough team. But a blockbuster you want to tell us about here in the AFC.
As soon as we got to break both of our mousetraps, Sauce Gardner is going to the Colts, which clearly they were, in their secondary looking to add some pieces there. But 2 first-round picks for 2026, 2027, and a player yet to be named. But as details are coming out as we're getting closer to the 4 p.m. deadline, I think crazier things are going to start happening.
Well, there are a lot of teams think they can win now, and this is how you do it, by making these kinds of trades. That's going to do it for us. For Missy Matthews, I'm Bob Pompiani. Have a great day, and we'll see you on Sunday and then next Tuesday back here for another Tomlin Tuesday.